MSI's current GeForce 10 series lineup features more GTX 1080 graphics cards than you can poke a stick at. On hand today is the GTX 1080 Gaming Z8G using the latest Twin Frozen 6 cooler from MSI. This is the company's most extreme air-cooled option, so I'm pretty keen to check it out. There are three Twin Frozen 6 models, which are called the Gaming 8G, Gaming X8G and Gaming Z8G. The standard gaming model apparently misses out on the RGB lighting and operates at the reference clock frequencies. Then we have the special X and Z models, both of which feature fancy lighting and come factory overclocked. You might assume that the X version is the more extreme of the two, but that isn't the case. The Z actually comes at the highest clock speeds. But before we check out the clock speeds, let's take a look at the 1080 Gaming Z8G board design and cooler. The latest generation Twin Frozen features Torx 2.0 fans, Zero Frozen stay, smooth heat pipes, and airflow control technology. Having been very impressed with Twin Frozen 6 implementations on MSI's RX 470, RX 480, GTX 1060 and GTX 1070 graphics cards, we're expecting good things from this flagship 1080 model. Unlike some of the extreme cards we've seen from the likes of Gigabyte and Gameward, this MSI model isn't a triple slot card. Instead, we have a 42mm wide dual slot card, and despite that, it still manages to squeeze in two large fans on top of a rather big heatsink, which is supported by a squad of 6 nickel-plated copper heat pipes. These heat pipes have been smoothed to ensure maximum contact with the copper base plate, which has also been nickel-plated. MSI tells us that a premium thermal compound has been applied to ensure optimal heat transfer from the GPU to the base plate. It looks like pretty standard stuff, but then I guess you can't really tell how premium a thermal compound is just by looking at it, so we'll have to take their word on it. Covering the heatsink is an impressive red and black themed fan shroud that becomes even more impressive once the cards have been powered up. Once active, the embedded LEDs make this graphics card come to life. The lighting can be controlled with the MSI Gaming app, and there's a few pretty cool effects on offer here. On the rear of the card we find a full-size backplate which features some neat looking cutouts along with a cool silhouette of a dragon. There's a gaming series logo as well, which is LED backlit and looks pretty cool. The shroud just overhangs the PCB, taking the card to a total length of 279mm, so pretty standard stuff for a GTX 1080 graphics card. However, what isn't standard is the height. This thing stands 140mm tall thanks to a supersized PCB that we'll take a look at now. Removing the bulk of the cooling, we find two additional heat spreaders covering the GDDR5X memory as well as the VRM area, so that's great to see. With the 1080 Gaming Z8G stripped completely naked, we get a good look at the massive PCB and how MSI has designed this graphics card. As is often the case with high-end MSI graphics cards, their military class 4 grade components have been used. This is another marketing exercise for the most part, but there's still some good stuff here, such as the Super Ferret chokes. Speaking of chokes, we find a 10+2 phase design on board, which, when coupled with an additional 6-pin connector, will be able to keep the GTX 1080 fed with enough power to maintain those 2.1 GHz overclocks. Before we push the 1080 Gaming Z8G as far as possible, let's check out the factory overclock settings. Out of the box, the card operates at a base clock of 1733 MHz with a boost clock of 1873 MHz, which is an 8% factory overclock. Using the MSI software, gamers can switch to an OC mode setting, which improves the base clock to 1771 MHz for a boost of 1911. Of course, thanks to Nvidia's unpredictable GPU Boost 3.0 technology, the card will likely run higher than 1911 MHz for the most part. For quick and easy overclocking, gamers can refer to the MSI Gaming app, which allows for quick switching between the various operating modes. Gamers can also control the LED lighting here as well, and it's possible to enable on-screen overlay information too. Then, for the serious overclocking, MSI has their separate Afterburner utility. Afterburner is a program I often use for GPU overclocking, but it's nice to actually use it to overclock an MSI card. With Afterburner, we increased the voltage percent to +100 and the power limit to 126%. This allowed the core clock to be increased by 85 MHz and the memory clock by 545 MHz. GPU-Z tells us this is an 1863 MHz base clock and a 1996 MHz boost clock. Of course, due to Nvidia's GPU Boost 3.0, we know the card can run faster than the suggested boost clock if kept under the thermal and power targets. During our testing, the boost clock hovered between 2150 MHz and 2180 MHz, which is very impressive. So then, I guess it's time to see how it performs. To the benchmarks! Out of the box, the Gaming Z is much like the other high-end 1080 cards we've already looked at, matching the Gigabyte Extreme Gaming and Gameward goes like hell. Overclocked, it's much the same story. Here the Gaming Z averaged 64 FPS to match the Gameward GLH. It's much the same story in Cry Primal. The Gaming Z proves that it has what it takes to hang with the massive oversized cards from Gigabyte and Gameward. Wrapping up the gaming benchmarks is Star Wars Battlefront, and it's again the same story here. That said, the Gaming Z did pull a frame ahead of the game with GLH once overclocked, though that's of course in the margin of error, even with their 3-run average. The Gaming Z isn't particularly power hungry when compared to the Founders Edition card with a total system consumption of 271 watts. Overclocked, it was quite a bit more efficient than the Gigabyte Extreme Gaming, consuming a similar level of power as the game with GLH card. Impressively, the Gaming Z is the coolest GTX 1080 we've tested yet, with an out-of-the-box load temperature of just 66 degrees. That's a single degree cooler than the huge Gigabyte Extreme Gaming and 2 degrees cooler than the game with GLH. Overclocked, the Gaming Z and Extreme Gaming both ran at just 68 degrees, so pretty impressive stuff once again. The MSI Gaming Z is yet another excellent GTX 1080 offering that provides top-notch performance without making a big fuss about it. Even when overclocked, this graphics card runs extremely quiet and wasn't audible over my case fans, which I have to say are already pretty quiet to begin with. As far as I'm concerned, the Gaming Z ticks all the right boxes and in my opinion is just as good as the Gigabyte Extreme Gaming, a graphics card I like dearly. Unfortunately, like the Extreme Gaming, the Gaming Z comes at a serious price premium, in fact, more so. While base model 1080s are selling for as little as $630 the Extreme Gaming will set you back $700 for the premium pack model. The MSI Gaming Z is even worse at $720, pricing it alongside the Asus ROG Strix OC. Of course, at these prices, what's an extra $20? That's barely a 3% bump. Still, at almost 15% more than the base model, such as the Gigabyte G1 Gaming, you have to wonder if these premium cards are worth the premium. MSI's own GTX 1080 Seahawk card only costs $20 more than the Gaming Z at $740, and I have to imagine this is a better, more extreme option for enthusiasts. Down under, the Gaming Z costs $1,130, while the liquid cooled Seahawk is just $10 more. The Gigabyte Extreme Gaming is slightly more competitive at $1,100, though keep in mind, 1080s do start at $970. Overall, the MSI GTX 1080 Gaming Z is a mighty impressive graphics card. I just feel the pricing is a little inflated right now, and that doesn't just apply to MSI. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I'm your host Matt as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers guys for joining me for another episode of Hardware Unboxed. To those of you that already support the channel, thank you so much, it's truly appreciated. And to those of you that would like to support the channel directly, I do have Amazon links and a Patreon link in the video description below. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys next time.